you guys sooner. You know what I mean? Like, especially like through my development stage, and, freshman all the way to senior year. I just wish I would have been on that side of town maybe, and then got to connect with you guys. I definitely felt like it would have helped me a lot.
Hello, good evening, and thanks for joining in. That's Kevin Howell, your host, the One Night Scout, and we're on the watch list. Tonight we have one of my favorite guys to watch and play. I remember catching for the first time last summer, and he is 6'2", Sean Mondragon from Corpus Christi Veterans Memorial, by way of behind the scenes on the P32 New Balance League. Sean, why don't you right off the bat? Let's talk about you. Let's talk about coming out of Corpus Christi Veterans Memorial. Let's talk about running with the behind the scenes. What is it that people need to know right off the bat?
Um, I'm a winner. That's all I gotta say. I like to compete, like to have fun competing. Win or lose, I'm gonna try my hardest, and I'm gonna try to get better. I think that shows. In high school, we went 39-1 with Veterans Memorial. We lost in the state semifinals, and then with BTS, if you watch us, you can see I lead the team. I'm encouraging my guys the whole time, and everyone on the floor is trying to compete constantly.
That's a great point, man. Um, you do, and we'll talk about this again. Have a tremendous defensive work ethic. Sometimes I think that overshadows your offense if people allow it to. Um, you attack people, you run like you got something to prove, you facilitate your true floor general. And so the coaches that are checking us out here tonight on Tan TV, this is somebody who loves real hoops. This is the story you need to hear. So let's dive in. All right, let's paint the picture. Sean Mondragon is not the flashiest of all players. Sean Mondragon is not the biggest shooter, doesn't take a lot of shots. But what is he? He's a floor general. He facilitates. He gets to the rim, and he gets his guys involved. What I like about him most is he's one of those 94 feet defensive players. So where does this defensive intensity come from?
Um, I would say that defensive intensity was probably instilled in me from a team I used to play with whenever I was in third grade, I think, which was Hoop Squad. Um, our
Mhm.
our coach, and then was Coach Tony. Um, and all he taught was defense, and whether we were full court pressing, man to man, uh, it was just defense the whole game. And I think I've carried that with me throughout really my whole career so far. Um, and that I think it just helps win games as well. Defense carries over and gives momentum to the offensive side, and that's what wins games.
So let's give a shout out, Coach Tony and the Hoop Squad. Really laid a solid foundation. Um, so let's talk about offense. It's not just You're not just a hustle guy. You got a real feel, a real skill, and can get downhill. You like my rapping styles? Yeah. But no, man. You always seem to make the right reads, and you're not just a scorer. We talked about it off air. You play with one of the top players in the country, and Billy White, and we talked about how was it playing with him. And your comment was,
Oh, he makes the game easy. I like to
yeah.
attack. I got him to kick out, and he knocks down threes.
So that helps your assist to turnover ratio.
A lot.
That's awesome. All right, man. So we're gonna jump right back on this. Hoop squad defense. You know, uh, defensive motor. You play every possession. Is that a reflection of Corpus Christi? Is that a reflection of Tony Crocker and Coach CJ? Or is that a reflection of how you think the game should be played?
I would say not so much Corpus Christi. Corpus isn't too much of a basketball city. I think Veterans Memorial is trying to change that, but right now we're mainly a baseball city. Um, but I would definitely say that Coach Tony and Coach CJ do help out a lot with that. Bringing energy to practice every day and helping instill that in
Mhm.
me. Just trying to become a better leader. Just so because I heard that your point guard should never have a bad practice. That's something you can't do because if a point
Yes.
guard has a bad practice, then everyone's energy is low. Um, I would say that it's also a big reflection of me. Like I said, I like to compete. I like to win, and there's no way you're going to win a basketball game without playing solid defense. And
You know, I'll rock with you on that. Your defensive motor is elite. You play every possession like it's the last possession. You frustrate offensive guys uh, because every time you turn them one way, your feet are quick, your arms are long, and you're cutting them off on the other side. And you know what's cool, man, is I've been around a lot of basketball players. And I'll tell you one thing straight out. You can't really fake toughness.
hmm
Like you can fake like, oh, I'm a big bad, all this, but you can't fake 94 feet.
hmm
You either have that or you don't. And you definitely have it. So we talk about what's your favorite part of defense? Is it shutting somebody down? Is it continually turning them? What is it?
um, I would say just predicting what they're going to do because I've played basketball my whole life. I know how it goes. I know when someone's about to cross over, when they're about to spin. So just anticipating their moves and just being one step ahead of them whenever they have the ball. It's kind of like a puzzle. Like you got to put everything together, and whenever it all comes right, then that's whenever the steals happen. That's whenever deflections and blocks happen. So really just anticipating like my opponent's next move. That's probably my favorite part.
You know, uh, my favorite part of you is, you know, you stay low, but I like to see if a point guard uses his chest
hmm
because the chest is going to dictate your hips, which is going to dictate your feet. So if your chest is always in front of someone, they're not going anywhere.
hmm
And whenever you're guarding the ball that hard, that far out, you set the tone for your whole team defense. You know, let's talk about it. Communication. You know, you've been around a great coach and Coach White. I know Crocker gets on y'all's ass about
hmm
communicating. So let's talk about that. You said to me before that like you're pretty quiet unless you're around your friends.
hmm
That's not what I see on the court. So is that something you have to work at, or it came about?
No, that was definitely something I had to work for. Um, I'm pretty quiet off the court, and whenever I was younger, I used to bring that on the court, and like you can't play basketball and be quiet at the same time. It's just not going to happen. So that's something I definitely had to learn with San Antonio Future. Like that was one of the teams where I really learned to talk. And again, with behind the scenes, uh, Coach Crocker, he's done a great job at talk, communicate. Like the whole practice, everyone's talking, everyone's communicating, and it simplifies the game. And for the offense, it makes it 1,000 times harder because now instead of your defender guessing where his help side is, he knows you're right behind him. He knows he got your back. So I
Yeah,
would say,
that's
um, you know, communicating, it simplifies the game, makes it 1,000 times easier, so you don't have to guess what your teammate's gonna do.
and let's not forget, man. I watch you in your man-to-man defense, and sometimes you get switched up on a guy that's 6'5", 6'4", 6'5", and you use your length, use your strength. And man, let's be honest, bro. I've always said that you play about 6'3", 6'4". I was kind of shocked when I looked, and at the time, it was 6'1". Now you've added an inch going into your senior season, 6'2". And well, let's talk about that. Where did you learn to be an effective defender of larger players?
So growing up, I was always one of the taller kids, one of the bigger guys. So I was guarding whether it was the point guard or the five at the time. Growing up, and maybe I'm not guarding the five, I'm guarding the four now, but just learning that versatility as far as a defender and carrying that into high school. I think not having the tallest guys on our team to help out on the big guys that we were playing, whether it's 6'5", 6'6" guy that we're playing. I've had to take on that role sometimes, and I think I've done a good job at it so far. Again, my athleticism does help me whenever it comes to that, being able to move quicker than the guy in front of me, be able to jump higher, all that type of stuff.
Good Lord, man. We forgot about your athleticism, man. You freaking jumped through the roof. And I remember the first time I saw you, that was one of the things, man. You cleaned up the glass, and then you turn around and push the ball up the floor. And that kind of leads us into the next thing. Let's let's don't overlook and underrate your offensive skill set, because you can turn offense into defense, quick, fast layups, right? But also when you're out front and you're kind of probing, man, your first step is explosive and you can turn on a dime. How do you feel like you get your offensive game going, because you're really not a high volume shooter? Like, if you're gonna shoot the ball, it's gonna be the right shot.
hmm
So is that something that you focus on, or is that something, hey man, we need a bucket, I need to get to the basket, or what's your kind of philosophy?
Well, it's all situational for me. So whether it's a late game scenario, and I know that I got to go in right now, and I'm gonna get a bucket on this guy, or I know this shooter on my team, he just hit two threes. I'm gonna try to get it back to him. So it's all situational. I I always want to make the best play, the best winning play, and I think
Mhm.
that's what motivates me to not be selfish with the ball, not take all the shots. And then as far as getting to my spots, that's just something that's embedded in me from all the work that I've put in. Um, I don't. Whenever I'm in the gym, I really just work on one dribble pull ups, not not three, four dribble combination moves. I keep it very simple and fundamental because in the games, that's not what I'm doing. I'm not doing a whole bunch of dribbles, pounding the air at the ball. It's just one dribble gets to your spot, and I just
Man,
really
it's like we
take
were.
what the defender gives me.
I swear to you, bro. Great mind thinks alike. Because that I was just about to say, man, you don't dribble the ball a lot,
hmm
and so most of your decisions, boom, going to the basket, two dribbles. Like you said, one dribble jump shot. Um, and I like the fact that one of the things you've mentioned to me before is how much you like to facilitate. You like to kick the ball, and I feel like, knowing your IQ, you like to keep everybody in rhythm.
hmm
Am I lying, or is that one of
No, that's
those
pretty
things that
accurate.
you?
That's pretty accurate, I would
Mhm.
say. Again, like going back to what I said earlier about knowing which guys on your team are hot right now. Um, Definitely just feeding the hot hand, making the right reads. I knowing what your teammates are capable of. Like you're not gonna give the ball to your big out on the three and then leave him alone to work on the island. But one of your shiftier teammates, you might do that. Um, just like knowing your teammates, knowing the situation of the game, knowing time and score, um, seeing the mismatches on the floor, like specifically calling out mismatches. So you can get your guys those easy buckets whenever you need them, and just like playing with pace throughout the game. Sometimes you're gonna need to slow it down, and other times you're gonna need to be able to play in transition. So I think just having like good basketball IQ overall greatly helps with making the right decisions on the floor and the right reads.
You know, and I'm glad you talked about that, because you've had a solid foundation of basketball.
hmm
We've talked about that before, but it's like behind the scenes, is taking that chisel and refining it even more. What's it like learning from Coach Crocker and Coach CJ and the other trainers that you have throughout that program? What's that like?
Mm. Coach CJ and Coach Crocker, both great basketball minds. And for them to be able to be teaching me and instilling these little tiny subject matters that I was unaware of before, that's like it's really helpful. It's really improved my development. Um, I think Coach CJ's had a big role in my leadership and my ability to facilitate on the floor. Just whether it's like telling me like being able to be a leader and encourage your teammates, or whether it's specific things as far as like footwork and how to pass the ball, whether it's going to be a hook pass or a straight line drive, um all that type of stuff. It's just little stuff here and there, but on a larger scale it's all about leadership and being able to win games.
I mean, let's face it. Behind the scenes, based out of San Antonio, is really building dogs. Period. I mean, they
Mhm.
preach defense, toughness, accountability, and Sean, you fit that mold precisely. When you come out of a program like behind the scenes, you don't just hear the team, you don't just see the team, but you look at the whole overall picture. Is there one thing maybe CJ's told you, or is there one thing Crocker's told you that you kind of held up more than anything else?
One thing that Coach CJ continually says, um, he always says after the games, because usually we'll have one or two guys that were hot that game, or or maybe the next game, different guys hot. He'll always say, it might be him, it might be him, but it's always gonna be us. And that's just
Hmm.
something I've taken into every single game, and also try to tell my teammates that like you're not gonna have 20 points every single game, but there might be a game where you
Yeah,
have 25, you know,
yeah,
and just staying
yeah.
consistent, like doing the right things, making the right plays, still not looking for selfish shots here and there, but just playing for the guy next to you.
I kind of want to talk one thing about the watch list, right? To set the standard out there. If you're looking for hype, we may not be your spot. If you're looking for clicks, I know we're not your spot. But with Tan TV allowing us a platform, man, we went back and looked last year, and everybody that we interviewed had the opportunity to play in college. So we talk about with a one eye scout, we're not for everybody, but we see it, we do it, we talk it, and we put our name on online. And I thank Tan TV for that. So when you see Sean on the watch list, understand that he earned it. Wasn't given to him, and we thank Tan TV. So in closing, that's it for this episode of the Watch List, powered by Tan TV. We're here to highlight the players, the games, and people that deserve the recognition. So I'm Kevin Howell, the One Eye Scout, and we don't blink.
Said I just wish like I would have found you guys sooner. You know what I mean? Like especially like through my development stage, like, freshman all the way to senior year. I just wish I would have been on that side of town maybe and then got to connect with you guys. I definitely felt like it would have helped me a lot.